this mean it's over?
Does this mean he likes me?
Are butterflies good?
Am I ever gonna meet someone?
I'm tired of swiping.
Am I normal?
This is a common misconception. The purpose of your profile is not to screen people out. You can keep waiting for the fairy tale, or you can get on board with the new rules of relationships. If you've seen me on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, then you know this ain't your mama's love advice. This is Dates and Mates with Damona Hoffman. Hey, lovers. Welcome to another informative episode of Dates and Mates. While we did a little summer rewind of F the Fairy Tale in our summer series, the inbox of questions was filling up. So I am here to help with the very first all Dear Damona episode of the season. For any of you who are new to the show, maybe you found me on the Drew Barrymore Show or on Access Daily with Mario Lopez, where I appear regularly, or on Instagram. Let me give you the full intro, because I am not just a fly-by-night dating advice giver. I am actually a certified dating coach with 18 years of experience coaching singles. Yeah, it's cool that I have worked with celebrity clients like Garcelle Beauvais on The Real Housewives, but you know what's really cool? For over 11 years, I get to come here to Dates and Mates and work for you. My mission is to help people of all backgrounds, all ages, all places, everybody to find lasting love. So today's episode is dedicated to all of you, especially the listeners who've stuck with me for a long time. And those of you who are new here, I hope you'll stick with me for maybe 12 seasons more to come. Today, I'll be answering your top questions, like how do I delicately tell my match that my family is important, but relationships need to be a priority too? There's a big drinking culture where I live. How do I meet singles who share my more laid-back vibe? And I've done the work, but I can't seem to attract someone who's done the same. Is it time to lower my standards? Oh, honey, this is a SOS 911 situation. We'd better get right into it.
Dear Damona.
Damona, help me.
Our first question was emailed from a listener named Brianna. She says, "Hi, Damona. I love your podcast and book and appreciate your dating advice. I recently have been going out on good first dates where the men seem interested. We have a connection, talk about seeing each other again, and then I get ghosted. Is this a new trend or just plain bad luck? It has me anxious going on first dates where I worry, even if it's great, I'll never hear from them again. I feel stuck in a rut with endless first dates, and I want to break this unfortunate trend. Should I text them the next day? Any advice is appreciated." Brianna, honey, it's not just you. I mean, can I get an amen? Dates and Mates listeners, how many of you have had these great first dates and you're like, this is going well, let's do this again. And then you're like, crickets. Okay. So I just asked because you said, should I text them the next day? Are you doing any kind of follow-up? Because sometimes this is a really weird and counterintuitive thing, but sometimes people will not be interested in you because they think you're not interested in them. And it's so silly. Like, could we just say how we feel? I know we're all posturing and playing hard to get and not wanting to open up and get our heart broken, that we don't just say what we mean. So first I would say, yeah, text them the next day. But I also think that this is a bit of an epidemic that's going on where all communication has become transactional. And I feel like so much of this frustration is levied towards dating apps, but I see it happening everywhere in the world. I think we're all just really in this communication crisis that I keep talking about, where we're overloaded, we're disconnected, we're craving connection, but our way of going about getting it is really funny, isn't it? And sometimes when you get a little too close, you get burned and then you step away. So I totally understand why you'd be anxious going on first dates, because you're like, is this a waste of my time, right? Am I ever going to hear from them again? Am I going to will I get all excited about this possible connection? And then it's weeks of waiting. So that's why I just want you to be super direct from this point forward. I want you to be unabashedly honest about your dating goals and expectations. Let me take the expectations part out. I want you to be brutally honest about your dating goals. Like sometimes we also don't, we kind of try to keep it light and we're like, oh, I'm up for whatever. When I'm like, girl, you ain't up for whatever. You know what you want. So instead of being afraid we're going to scare everybody away because of our desire for a serious relationship, what if you thought of it as you're going to scare the ones that are going to do this to you anyway away? And then you're going to know right up front without making too much of an investment in your time and your energy. So let's just shore everything up. Make sure your profile says very clearly you're looking for a relationship. If someone approaches you IRL, make sure that you say, I am in my relationship era. Are you in that same phase as well? Just straight up say it. And if they're like, well, I don't know, whatever, like, thank you. You got your answer. And say, well, you're cute, but when you're ready for the relationship era, then we can go out. And if they're really not ready, they will self-select out. But you can't let it crush your enthusiasm for going on first dates again. You have to keep showing up because the only way you're going to get to second, third, fourth, fifth dates is you're going to have to go on these first dates. But maybe you can be a little more selective, or you can allow others to self-select out of that first date opportunity, because it is really an opportunity that you are giving them. You're giving them the gift of your time. What is more valuable than your time? Nothing. Your time is your most valuable resource. So we want to make sure that before we make the investment, that folks are pre-qualified, They don't just give you the car when you walk on the lot. You got to show up pre-qualified. You got to negotiate. Okay? So think of it like that, like you're buying a car. So it's as much incumbent upon them to sell you the car as it is for you to sell your car to them. You know what I'm saying? It's a negotiation for sure. Definitely appropriate to text the next day. Say, I had a great time. I can't wait to whatever the thing is that you talked about seeing each other again. Be specific also. Use specifics. So instead of being like, we should do this again, say, you know what? We should do this again. Next time I want to take you to the tea garden. Okay, that's kind of a weird date suggestion. If you didn't talk about it, maybe you both like tea and you talked about how you like tea. It's kind of a great first date because there's like a lot to look at. But anyways, figure out what it is that you both have in common and say, I'd love to do that together next time. And then you have something to call back when you text them. I can't wait to go skiing with you. I can't wait to do wine tasting with you. And that it plants a little seed, a little anchor for the future. And it reminds them of the great time that they had before. And then we don't chase. The person has to meet us in the middle or they're not our person. But then you have at least done everything in your power to set the connection up for long-term success. Our next question comes to us in a text message from a listener named Michelle. She says, Damona, help me. I'm in my late 50s. I have 2 grown daughters with children of their own. However, I'm also hoping to find someone who can make a relationship a priority. How and when do I communicate that I am very pro-family? I'm also looking to find someone who can prioritize a romantic relationship and whose life does not revolve entirely around their children and family. Is there language I can use in my profile, or how do I bring this up delicately in the early stages of dating? Michelle, I adore you. Just from this question, I can feel your heart and your soul, and it's so beautiful. And I am saying this with love. Michelle, honey, you are doing too much. You're doing too much because you're like, I'm close to my family. I want to be close to the family, but I don't want him to be like too focused on his family. I mean, I want him to be focused on me, but also on his family. So you got to be family oriented, but not too family oriented. Let's just take it as it comes, girl. We don't know. We don't know what the packaging will look like. We just know what our values are. What is important to us in our life and the way we live our life. So yeah, you have 2 grown daughters. They have children of their own. If they're not living under your roof, honey, that's just like part of the story. That's part of the plot. And now it's you time. So I don't think you need to um, emphasize in your profile or in your conversations, like, hey, can you make a relationship a priority? I think people will really show you in their actions and in what they tell you about on those first dates. And you will be able to tell if their lives revolve entirely around their children and family. They will be in the profile, they will talk about them on the date. They will say, "Oh, I can't do a date that night because I have to do this thing for my family." So this is a really big game changer for all of you. This is a common misconception that I hear. The purpose of your profile is not to screen people out. The primary purpose of your profile is to draw people in. The screening step happens after you have matched and brought the bees to the honey, if you know what I'm saying. Once you bring them in, then you look at their profile and you say, "Huh, wow, they mentioned their kids a whole lot in the profile. Wow, their kids are in every single photo. Maybe even though we matched, now that I'm really looking at it more intently, maybe this isn't the right match for me." Or you at least then explore the match and you send them a message and you get a sense of who they are. You go out on a date and then you're like, "Oh, that was not the right balance of family and relationship that I was looking for." But we have to do that in the screening. It doesn't belong in the profile. And so I say that as like a global note for all profiles. We think if we say no vegans, sorry vegans, I love you, but you know that now it's everything's plant based. I don't know whatever the difference is, but you know we think we say no time wasters and no F boys, and what that really means is I've had my time wasted. I've had my heart broken. I am already coming to the date with a chip on my shoulder about it. And I am not open minded going into the date. And so you're already starting at a negative point. It's not going to turn off just the people who are time wasters. Like, no time waster is going to read it and be like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm a time waster. I'm an F boy. Yeah, I better not message this person." No, they're not going to read that and think, I mean, maybe the vegans are going to really have a problem with that, but they're not going to read into that identification, right? So it's up to you to filter that out yourself. And within the profile, just focus on attracting in, getting as many matches and messages as possible so that you can then be the chooser. Well, I hope that was a helpful answer for not just Michelle and Brianna, but for everyone listening. We have two more relatable questions coming at you. But first, we need to take a quick break with a word from our sponsors who help us bring you Dates and Mates every week, absolutely gratis. Thank you for supporting our sponsors and the Dates and Mates community. Let's get back to your dating questions. This email comes to us from a listener named LK. They say, "Hi, Damona. I've been listening to your show for a year or two now, and I don't recall hearing you address substance use. I'm in my mid to late 30s and not as interested in dating men who use a lot of recreational substances or who get drunk intentionally or frequently. I love a drink or two with great food or out with friends, but I am well past where I find heavy intoxication fun. I found it hard to talk about this though, as the cities I've lived in have big drinking cultures and I've been teased about my preferences before. I'm just not really interested in that lifestyle and I'm not sure how to communicate about it. Do you have any tips on how to kindly communicate this preference or find people with similar lifestyles? Thanks." So you're right, LK. It's been a while since I've talked about drinking and dating. We did do an episode about sober dating for dry January a couple Januaries ago. But I'll admit I haven't really talked about dating for people that are sort of in the middle, like you or I, where like, yeah, I might have a drink. I'm kind of little, so I can't even really have two. Like If I have two, it's disastrous. But I think there's a lot of people who fit in that middle ground where you're not necessarily going to go to a sober dating site, though you could if you are open to dating somebody who's sober. There's a bunch out there like Lucid, Loosid. That's an app for sober daters. And there's even like singleandsober.com. There's a lot of options for people who are specifically wanting to date people who don't drink. And there actually has really been a trend overall towards sober dating. That said, it's very dependent on where you're finding your matches and the culture you're dating within. So I know that there are places where the drinking culture is really different. And you have to just have confidence that there are plenty of other people who are just as sick of that drinking culture as you are. And you have to know that anyone who would tease you about your preferences, they ain't right for you, honey. Because really that teasing actually is coming out of judgment for themselves. They're feeling like they're drinking too much, that they're not making great decisions in dating. And they're trying to get you to drink to loosen you up. You know that, right? They're not teasing you because they're trying to make you feel bad. They're teasing you because they're trying to bring your guard down so that you'll just have a drink with them, and then one drink will turn into two drinks, and then it will be a lot easier for them to be comfortable and for them to like you. They think that you won't like them if they're sober and you're sober. So if they could just shame you or tease you into having a drink, then it's going to make their life a lot better. And you know what? That's not your job. That is not your job. So that's not your stuff. That's their stuff. If you could put that aside and know that if you stand in your own power and integrity about what is important to you, anyone who loves you is going to respect that. Anybody who wants to get to know you, who's going to be an appropriate match for you, is going to respect that. Now, I do find that sometimes there are people who do not want to date someone who is sober. There are people who aren't going to want to date someone who drinks very infrequently. It doesn't sound like that's the situation that you're in, but also for anyone who's in that situation, it's your lifestyle. Like if your lifestyle is not going to change for them, then they need to be comfortable with your lifestyle or they're not for you. So I give this scripting for anyone who has a non-negotiable or even just a preference that they have gotten friction about before, or something that maybe they feel a little shame or embarrassment about. You got to name it and claim it. You speak it up front like it's not even a thing. Oh, I don't drink very much. So why don't we try a coffee date? I don't drink very much. Let's go hiking instead. Drinking's not really my thing. So I'd love to meet you at the museum. There are so many dry dating options that you can do that would give you a better sense of the person anyway, that if you just speak it aloud at the beginning and then give an offering for something else you can do together that will be fun, where alcohol will not even enter into the picture. Like you're not going to be like out on a hike and they're suddenly going to be like, I need to get a beer from the park ranger, right? So set yourself up for success in how you communicate with them, the venue you choose for the date, and then how you show up on the date. If it's not an issue for you, it's not going to be an issue for them unless it is, right? But if you come in like, oh, I don't even want to share this, so I'm going to try to stuff it away or hide it, and maybe they won't discover it, and then we can have a nice first date and drinking won't come up, and hopefully they won't get blacked out and forget the date. Like we're not going to prey on that. We're going to really clearly speak our intention and put that shame and embarrassment for what other people tried to push on you in the past, because it's not your stuff, so you don't need to carry it forward anymore. Great question, and I hope that helped you out. Our final question of the day comes to us in an Instagram DM from Colleen. She says, after my divorce, I worked on myself until I became the type of person I would swipe right on before dating. I find myself really disappointed in the people who like me on apps for many reasons besides not being physically attracted to them. I'm 44 and I don't want to date someone who isn't at an equal point in their emotional maturity, availability, finances, career, etc. I'm beginning to think there's no one available that's up to par. Should I lower my standards? Work through my expectations in more therapy? I'd love to hear your advice. Colleen, I love hearing that you have done the work, you've been in therapy, and you took time after your divorce to build yourself back up and become the person you wanted to be. I start all of my programs, including the Dates and Mates method, with mindset work. And so you've done a lot of that foundational work already. But I will tell you that there's always more to build off of. And when I hear things like, I'm beginning to think that there's no one available that's up to par, that's when I start to say, ooh, what's under that? Because when we have a limiting belief, saying to ourselves, there's no one available that's up to par, we begin to believe that limiting belief. That's just a story that your brain is telling. And your brain it's always like chitter chattering. It's always telling you things that can't happen. It's trying to protect you. It's trying to keep you safe. It's like, oh, don't hurt your heart. Don't even open up because there's no one out there that's up to par. And so the more that you listen to those thoughts, the more that you believe them, and then the more that you order your actions around it. So what's the outcome of that? Believing that there's no one up to par. You then lower your standards, as you said, which I know, girl, I know you ain't really going to do that. Nobody's going to lower their standards. But maybe you retreat from dating. Maybe you say, well, then this dating app, I don't like these people that they're showing me, so I'm just going to not use the dating app. But then I'm also not going to go out. I'm not going to say yes to invitations. I'm not going to sign up for a singles event. I'm just going to put up a wall and retreat. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happening, Colleen, but I'm worried that that might be where you end up if you keep repeating phrases like this. Now, let's talk about the likes for a second. First of all, likes are not worth very much. I've been explaining this to some of the clients who are in my VIP program right now. Likes are like remember winks on Facebook? Remember that? Likes are just hearts on Instagram. Comments, that's the juicy stuff on Instagram, right? Same thing on a dating app. The likes or the people that you're presented with are more reflections of how you show up in the algorithm and how well your profile is working than anything else. So I would not even put 2 seconds of thought or emotional energy. It would not even raise to the level of disappointment to see people who like you not being physically attractive. There would be no emotional response if you were in the Dates and Mates method. However, what I would take from that is I would wonder, okay, if I'm not attracted to any of these people, what do I need to change in my profile to attract in people who are more right for me? And it might require, I don't know if you've had professional pictures taken. All my VIP clients, we do a photo shoot for my one-on-one coaching clients. We go through the pictures, we work with their photographers and find the pictures that really tell their story visually and that make them look like themselves, but the best version of themselves. And most people are not doing that. Most people haphazardly pull pics from their Instagram or, photos that they've taken out with friends. They don't have the right lighting, they don't have the right colors, they don't have the right framing, they don't have the right background. We're not really conditioned to think about the information that we're conveying in our profile. We only sit from our vantage point and say, well, I don't like any of the people who are coming to me. And that's why I love what I do. I love peeking under the hood and say, okay, if you don't like what you're seeing reflected back, in the mirror, let's change what's in the image originally so that we can see something else reflected differently back. And this doesn't mean, like, I'm not trying to change you. This doesn't mean you have to change. This just means you might have to change the way that you're presenting yourself in the pictures, in the bio, in your short answer, which, from depending on which app you're on, your short answer questions, in the impressions that you are giving off. And then last but not least, I just have to again address this idea of I don't want to date someone who is not at an equal point. Because sometimes we have different associations with these qualities, like finances, career, because that's part of the fairy tale, friends, that we were told, oh, you need to date someone at your financial level or higher, your education level or higher, your height or taller, right? And when we really step back, it's like, look, you're 44. We're almost the same age. You're 44. You probably have your stuff together. You've got your career, you've got your life set. You're doing pretty well. You're doing well for yourself. So, what do you need in a relationship? Do you need someone to be additive to your finances? Do you need somebody who is also going to be a boss in their career? Or do you actually need somebody who's going to nurture you and take care of you and be emotionally available to you? I co-sign on the emotional maturity. But I just have to ask the question because I hear it a lot about people saying they need somebody that's their financial equal. And really, I think what that boils down to is a fear. A fear, well, I don't want somebody who's going to take finances from me. And I get that. But I also want you to just consider, what are you receiving in exchange for someone who is not a career focused person? Because if that's you, maybe you don't need two of those. Maybe you need somebody that's going to offer you something else of value. And some of our expectations around this also do come from societal norms. What will people say about me if I date somebody who only has a high school diploma, but maybe they read constantly and they are really insightful and super intelligent, but they just didn't do the system the way that I did, right? Or what if, like, I did an episode back in December with a listener who had met her partner on a dating app and she has a graduate degree. And she was like, I need to only date people who have a graduate degree. But then she realized when she wanted to start a family that she was working a lot. She needed somebody who was going to be a caretaker for their child. And she ended up meeting somebody who was in the trades, who was also okay stepping back a little bit from his career to be a support to their family. And their son just celebrated his first birthday. They're living as a very happy family unit because she let go of those expectations of the fairy tale that was handed to us and looked at the love story that she was writing for herself in the present. And she looked at the person immediately in front of her and the values she had and the goals that she had and saw what was in alignment instead of dating based on ideals. So I offer that to you and ask, what would change in your dating strategy if you dated from that point? If you dated from pursuing an alignment in goals and values rather than in these societal markers of success? And these are the kind of questions that we ask when we go through your specific dating plans in the Dates and Mates method. So thank you for your question, Colleen. A lot of food for thought in there. If you are interested in going deeper with me, having these kind of discussions, practicing your dating skills, writing these scripts, changing your dating profiles, getting the feedback that you need to hold that mirror up to your dating life and make sure that you're on the path towards the relationship that you dream of, then come inside the Dates and Mates method. We only enroll this program once a year. So the time is now. We meet every week starting September 18th. So the window is closing for registration, and we do take in a limited number of people so that we can give hands-on live training in the room every single week to everyone. So you can find out more, you can read testimonials, and you can work with us to rewrite your love story and design a dating plan that's going to work for you right now. Don't delay your happiness because your new future could start today. You can find out more at damonahoffman.com/method. Again, that's the Dates and Mates method at damonahoffman.com/method. If you have questions about the program, if you have a question for a future episode of Dates and Mates, DM me. My DMs are always open at Damona Hoffman on TikTok, X, Facebook, Instagram, and at Dates and Mates on YouTube. Yes, friends, we have full video episodes of our beautiful and wonderful guests and some Dear Damona episodes all there for you on YouTube. You can also give me a call, send me a text at 424-246-6255. That's our 24/7 voicemail. Anytime, day or night, call me and I am happy to help you with your love dilemma. I hope you loved episode 524 of Dates and Mates just as much as I loved bringing it to you. We will be back again with another fabulous episode. Until then, I wish you happy dating.